I just started an Ashtanga yoga practice, so here's a brief little background of the practice, my first impressions, and things that I'm noticing as somebody who's coming into the practice as a primarily Iyengar Yoga practitioner. Full disclosure, a lot of this background is just stuff that I was doing some research on, so it's very, very light. I don't know if it's 100% accurate. Here's what I found. Ashtanga Yoga is a school of yoga that was popularized by Pattabi Jois. Mr. Jois said that his teacher, Tirumulai Krishnamacharya, taught him the sequence when he was a young man. Now, Krishnamacharya is a really big figure within the Western world for yoga. He's sometimes referred to as the father of modern yoga because you get a lot of different schools of yoga from his teachings. Other schools of yoga that come from the Krishnamacharya line are Iyengar Yoga, Vini Yoga, Yoga Krama Yoga, as well as Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga yoga classes are a little different in that you're not practicing in unison the same postures together. Instead, what you'll have is you'll have a led Ashtanga class where an instructor is in the room and there'll be people who come in during a specific time slot. During that time slot, people can come in, they'll do their practice that they have to memorize, and during that time, the instructor will go around giving assists, adjustments, directives, and also adding on new postures within the set sequence. So these are set sequences that each student is expected to remember. And that's just part of the practice. I think it's kind of an interesting one and fun. In 2 weeks in, I've only been given a fraction of the sequence and I still manage to invert some and sometimes forget some. So it's kind of a fun way to play and start to try to work my memory. It's kind of cool being at different parts of the sequence and in different parts of your practice. So it's really inspiring to see a lot of the more seasoned practitioners be able to do some really amazing acrobatic things. It's a nice way to see where you might be able to go and also see the dynamic of the teacher-student relationship, which I really appreciate because the teacher is going around the room. They get to really know the student's practice and they get to give you some individual attention in little spurts. Like I mentioned before, Ashtanga Yoga is a set sequence of which there are 6 sequences. You have the primary sequence, Yoga Chikitsa, intermediate sequence, Nadi Shodhana, and then you have 4 levels within the advanced sequence, A, B, C, and D. The advanced sequence is called Sthira Bhaga. The emphasis of Ashtanga Yoga is different than an Iyengar Yoga class. Iyengar Yoga, it's a lot of precision in alignment, and it wouldn't be uncommon to do just 8 poses because the poses are long held and propped up to help give you proprioception and give you a little bit deeper sensation and consciousness within a posture. From my limited 2 weeks experience of Ashtanga, Ashtanga does not emphasize alignment as Iyengar Yoga does. Although I will say that the instructors that I'm learning from do incorporate some of that and will kind of help break down a pose to help you get deeper and learn where you're supposed to be, which is really nice and comforting for me because as they're telling me things with alignment, they're saying things that I would agree with. They're keeping the practice safe. There are 2 key components within Ashtanga Yoga practice. One is Tristana, which is 3 areas of action or attention, and it's broken into 1, pranayama, breath, 2, asana, or postures, 3, drishti, which is your gaze. There are 9 places of focus for the gaze: nose, between the eyebrows, navel, feet, thumb, hands, up, right, and left sides. And these 3 places of focus of attention within the practice is to be able to address the 3 components of consciousness. And in focusing on these 3 areas, Trisana, you are supposed to be able to have purification in 3 places: the body, the nervous system, and the mind. The second key component is vinyasa, or the linking of breath and movement. Within this, they emphasize breath, or the type of breath, and body locks, or bandhas. So it's really interesting to see what was emphasized to me as I'm practicing. One of the things that I noticed was like in postures like Trikonasana, triangle pose. In Iyengar classes, I'm instructed to widen my stance quite far to really be able to open up the hips and, get that external rotation going in the front thigh. Within Ashtanga, I've been instructed to actually close off my stance. And the reason why they told me to close off my stance was to maintain the bandhas. So it was really important to engage Uddiyana Bandha, the navel lock, as well as Mula Bandha, the pelvic floor lock, when I'm doing those postures. Also within Trikonasana, within Ashtanga, they have you bind the front foot and the big toe. This is not something that was emphasized in Iyengar Yoga. In fact, I haven't had anybody instruct me to do that within Iyengar classes. Within Iyengar Yoga, one of the things that they emphasize is not side bending the right and left sides of the trunk when you're going into Trikonasana. And one way to keep the sides of the body nice and long and symmetrical is by propping up your hands. For those who have less range of motion in the hips. So you'll either prop your hand up onto a block or two, just to be able to maintain the structural integrity of that posture in keeping everything aligned. Within Ashtanga, it's not really a big deal to, keep the side bodies nice and long. In fact, it's okay to be able to side bend because grabbing the big toe is more of an emphasis in that, or at least that's what I've gleaned so far. Drishti is another one that's been really interesting to play with. A lot of times when I practice Iyengar yoga classes, I tend to close my eyes because I want to be able to feel my body in space and see if I can keep that alignment and rotation through my center. When I practice Ashtanga, sometimes my gaze will be to my top hand, for example, in a pose like Trikonasana, or it'll be at my top hand when I'm in like an extended side angle Parshvakonasana. And I guess these points of focus, the drishti isn't directed maybe in Iyengar Yoga because simply moving your eyes to that spot can create misalignments in the head and neck. Though I'm not quite sure, I would have to really ask my teachers. Another thing that I thought was interesting between Iyengar Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga is the placement of Shirshasana headstand and Sarvangasana shoulder stand. They're actually flipped in the two practices. So in Ashtanga Yoga, you'll do Sarvangasana shoulder stand first, and then you'll do Shirshasana headstand. In Iyengar sequence, you'll do Shirshasana first, and then you'll counterpose Shirshasana with shoulder stand. So I see a lot of value in both. I'm having a lot of fun in the 2 weeks that I've been doing Ashtanga Yoga. I'm about halfway through the primary sequence according to my teacher today. And Ashtanga practice is really athletic. I believe it's been taken from British gymnastics and army training. You'll end up doing a lot more poses in Ashtanga just because the poses are only held for 5 to 8 breaths each, but I'm really enjoying the challenge. In Ashtanga, I'm finding that I'm twisting a lot deeper because of the binds. Now, I obviously have no other way of being able to measure this aside from maybe talking to other Ashtanga practitioners. I just don't have very many in my circle at the moment. But it seems like I'm progressing kind of quickly through the primary sequence. And I think there's a couple factors that I'm going to guess just because of what I'm looking at in the sequence. The first thing is I have a lot of hip mobility, so strength and flexibility, as well as control, just from years of practicing yoga, even though it wasn't through this specific lineage. So because I have a lot of open hips, I'm able to access poses like Padmasana, lotus pose, which is really big within this primary sequence. From what I can see, there's a lot of Ardha Padmasana variations. I'm able to easily access those. I may not be having as difficult of a time for some to be able to memorize the sequence because a lot of these poses have been practiced and are familiar to me. It's just a matter of me remembering where exactly to place them. So that could also be influencing how fast or quickly I'm moving through the postures. There's also, because I've been practicing for so long, there's also a certain level of like strength that I've built up, as well as a certain level of body awareness to be able to maneuver some of the transitions and movements. Now, I'm not by any means perfect at any of these. It's actually still kind of fun to see myself move in different ways, and because of that, some of my movements are very clunky and the transitions are difficult. So there are things that I'm working on, and those are kind of fun to be able to do. Poses that I love. I'm finding that I'm really enjoying the twisting because I'm able to twist a little bit deeper. I'm also really enjoying it because it's a challenge. It's a big challenge for me to twist. Although I have a lot of range of motion, I have really short arms, and in a lot of these twists, you're supposed to bind by grabbing onto the wrists. Because I have very short limbs, like my arms, it's difficult for me to be able to bind. So that's been a fun thing that I've been working on, and it's also something that I've been seeing a lot of improvement really quickly, actually. One of the poses that I don't like, I do, however, don't like a specific posture, and it's Janu Shirshasana C. And in this posture, I don't like it because basically my toes and the bottom of my feet hurt. You have your toes flexed back, the ball of your foot is on the ground, and your heel is up in the opposite hip crease. So you forward fold over that, and yeah, it gives the bottom of your foot a huge stretch. What's kind of interesting is that I noticed that one foot has more sensation than the other, and I think it's because of my postural pattern that I'm finding that, yeah, the one of my feet has less range of motion. I look at it as it's evening out. I still don't particularly enjoy the sensations, but the discomfort has assuaged. So yeah, I'm working on that. Anyway, if you're working on an Ashtanga practice, I would love to hear your thoughts and what your experience is with this practice. I've been having a lot of fun, and yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye.